All right. These are the notes for lesson 2.1. But before I begin, you'll notice a different look. I added a few slides here and also to the student copy in Google Classroom. So be sure to, don't be alarmed. This is the assignment, the 13 colony notes, but I just didn't put all the parts in and I don't want it to confuse you. So all of these notes combined will cover lessons 1.1, 2.1, and 3.4 when you turn them in. Okay. But for now, just notice the update and continue working. So let me cover 2.1. All right. Chapter 3, 2.1. You saw this slide if you were in class. If you weren't here, then this is new to you. But let's take a look. So you all remember in colonizing Virginia, we learned that the Jamestown colonists weren't really here in search of food and shelter, or anything like that. It was business. Okay, if you remember, they were in search of what? That's right, gold. Now we're looking at a new group of colonists coming in from uh, England, and they are here, yeah, maybe for some business purposes. I think there was a joint stock company involved, but they are here in search of religious freedom. Religious freedom. So the target of this lesson is to learn about the role of religion that played in establishing the New England colonies. All right. So here is our essential question. As you know, we know that the early settlers had challenges, and we're looking at that in all of chapter 3. And here is our success criteria. Students will compare and contrast the Pilgrims and the Puritans by describing whether they were dissenters here in this first row, okay, not the middle part, but here and here. Their attempts at government here and here, and their survival here and here. And you'll notice that I put a little Google here symbol because you might have to do a little research on the Puritans just to find out how they survived. But I think we can make some inferences as we go through this. Now, in class, remember I had you open up 2.1. Okay, you should still have that assignment. It is similarities and differences that we're looking for as we read through here. And let me show you an example. Now, I moved over to the textbook, okay, and I asked students to, read and highlight some differences and similarities between the Puritans and the Pilgrims, all right? And as we know, and I did this in a different color. So, in this first part, the Pilgrims find a home. You have to understand that the Pilgrims did not want to be a part of the Church of England. They wanted to be separatists, as it says here. Okay. And so they came over. We also know that they came over in 1620 on the Mayflower, right? And these are things that you will list in just a moment. Their form of government or their agreement to form a government was signed on the Mayflower Compact. All right. We also know that they landed on Plymouth. They were headed, according to videos we've seen in class, to Jamestown and to the Virginia colony, but they got blown off course. So they made it here, but just like the folks at Jamestown, they could not survive without some help. So Squanto, Pawtucket Native American, helped them, taught them how to grow their own food, how to farm, how to how to harvest the crops, etc. Okay, so the Native Americans were instrumental in helping the Pilgrims when they arrived. All right. Then we move on here to the Puritans, and the Puritans were different. They were just dissenters, and they really, let me go back up here to the top, wanted to make small changes to the church. Okay, but it's ironic as you go through the reading down here, you'll find that the Puritans didn't allow for dissenters in their colonies as they came over. So they came over 10 years later. Okay, 1630. You can put that in. Um, you can also explain what this city upon a hill means. John Winthrop mentions that all eyes were on them as they were moving out to reform the church. And if they had success, more people would come. The New England way was the way that they governed themselves. Okay. There was no separation between the church and the state. Okay. The church was the center of community. All citizens were required to attend. But as you move down further, not all Puritans agreed with this New England way. Okay. There were dissenters. So they started to kick people out, like Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson. So these are things that you can include on your list. Eventually, some of these settlers or Puritans, okay, created their own government as they are starting to break off and arrive here in North America. So you know that this was their idea of self government. This was their first attempt at self government, the Fundamental Orders of Connecticut. And and they continued in that way, and they started to break off, I think, into two or three more colonies, and the colonies started to grow. So now that moves us on to here to our list. Okay, and this is I don't know what slide number it is on yours now. Now that I've added a few more slides, but this is lesson 2.1 for chapter 3. And now what you want to do is make a list of those things that we just covered and highlight it. If you notice more in your reading, then please add them. We want to know, were the Pilgrims dissenters or separatists? Were the Pilgrims dissenter or separatists? Were the Puritans dissenter or separatists? This list is a little longer because you see those names in the reading. So don't forget to tell me about who was a dissenter and who got banned or banished from the colony for not going along with the New England way. You may want to put in here the New England way and the fundamental orders as their first attempt at self government. And you're going to do the same for the Pilgrims. What was their first attempt, if you remember? Go back and rewind if you need to. Okay, here's the summary. All right, the factors that contributed to the Pilgrims' survival upon arriving in America were, and you can talk about the help that the Pilgrims received, their attempts at self governing, and their purposes for coming. Okay. Now, you may want to put this thinking map on a separate sheet of paper or on a separate slide. Okay. But on one side, I should see the Pilgrims and their attempts at government, how they survived, and whether or not they came over as dissenters or they came over as separatists. Okay, same thing here. All right. So whatever you do to this side, make sure you do it on this side. And then there should be down the middle, several similarities, between the Pilgrims and the Puritans. All right.